So new government data has revealed that £9 million was lost to rental scams across the country last year.
One person that knows all too well how advanced these scams can be is 27-year-old Anna Gonzalez, who handed over £8,000 to rental fraudsters.
Anna is here alongside Alice Beer with everything we need to know to try and stay safe in this increasingly desperate rental market. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Anna, thank you so much for joining us to share your story as well. Just talk us through exactly what happened. Where were you when you started, you found yourself in the middle of this scam? What had happened?
So I was desperately looking for a property because our current property, the landlords had said that they needed to sell the flat. So that was the circumstance for looking, and it was over the Christmas period.
And you only had 2 months' notice, right?
Exactly, 1 to 2 months' notice. Everything is shut over Christmas anyway, so we turned to Open Rent, which is a platform I've used all throughout university as a student, and I felt that it could give us a bit of an edge to talk directly to the landlord. I found a couple of properties that had actually already been leased, and then this landlord reached out to me, saying that he had another property coming up, and that's the one that we went to look at.
And it was all looking very promising, wasn't it? Because, of course, you know that time is ticking. There aren't enough rental properties on the market for the number of people that need them. You knew Christmas was coming, and it was all looking quite positive.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the COVID period as well, people were signing for properties with far less information. You know, there was a kind of influx of taking videos and signing based on FaceTime, and we went to see this property. We met a man suited and booted at the property. There were about 4 or 5 other couples waiting to see it. It was in
Did you actually see them waiting to see it as well?
Yeah.
So they were queuing up to see it?
Yeah, and so that kind of added, I think, to the competition and the pressure.
It adds panic.
Absolutely. So we got shown around the property. It was perfect. It was slightly out of the way, but it was in a great location. And we just thought, you've got to snap it up while you're there.
And as you say, Anna, you'd used Open Rent before previously as a student.
Yep.
Did anything at any point shout, this seems too good to be true, this feels like a fraud?
No, unfortunately. And, I even went as far as comparing the contract that we were sent side by side. I mean, there was a fake website. There were obviously multiple people involved, somebody arranging the viewing. And I think what struck me is that I think you usually think that these are quite faceless, impersonal things, but I'd built so much rapport with this person. I'd had multiple phone calls. I'd met people, his associates, on the phone and that kind of thing. So that just, I didn't... Yeah, absolutely.
And so what you decided to do, obviously because there were 5 other people in line and you knew you were desperate and you were working under a time crunch, you decided to try and give yourself the edge by saying to the estate agent, look, can we give you some rent up front? If we can jump to the front of the queue, would that work?
Yeah. And
so you ended up parting ways with 8,100?
Yeah, exactly. It was actually my colleagues who mentioned, I paid rent up front to give me the edge. It was the only way that I could secure a flat.
I get it.
It wasn't something that I'd tried before, but at the moment, the rent, people are offering more monthly rent, which over a long period of time is such an extortionate amount more.
Yeah.
So I thought, I spoke to the landlord and I said, would this help you? Would this kind of sweeten the deal?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, that would be fine. I'll take it off the market.
So you send over £8,100, still completely believing that the flat's yours, probably quite excited. You've secured the flat.
Really
totally.
Flat you like, in time for Christmas.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking that things weren't quite as they seemed?
Not until the move-in date. So everything happened quite fast, which to me didn't kick up any worry because I was dealing directly with the landlord, and as far as I knew, it was a vacant property.
Yeah.
The day that we moved in, I'd already started to transfer my bills over, set up, try and get ahead of the game. It was early January, the move-in date, and it got to 5 o'clock on the Friday, and I hadn't heard back, but we'd been speaking in the morning. It got to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and I thought, this doesn't really feel right. And I worried because the landlord had told me that he lived outside of London, and I thought, oh my goodness, what if something's happened to him?
Yeah.
So I went over to the property. I got in an Uber. I rang the bell to let someone let me in. And I knocked on the door, and somebody answered the door, and it was an Australian guy who had the property for 4 days until the Monday.
And what did he say?
He said, this is my Airbnb. This is my Airbnb. I'm staying here. I don't really know what you're talking about. I'm really sorry that this has happened.
Gosh, The panic at that point must have been terrifying.
It was you spiral at that moment because you can't even connect any dots. And it's also, housing is kind of your safety and it's sort of a basic need, isn't it? So it was, and also the logistics of having a moving van the next day, and it all just happened very fast.
You'd borrowed the money from your family too,
exactly.
and then all of a sudden you've suddenly got a giant gaping hole where you'd need to find somewhere else as well.
Yeah, and I think the money doesn't even come into it at that point. You know, it's such an emotional shock.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it took me a few days to even address that part.
So what did you do next? Was there any way of trying to retrieve the cash? Because you'd also got a video of the man who is posing as an estate agent.
Yeah, I called the police immediately, actually, before I'd even left the property. They sort of deferred me to action fraud, but obviously it was 7 p.m. on a Friday and action fraud closes over the weekend. So
no fraud on the weekends.
No, exactly. So I then went back into my local branch near my family home and sort of refused to leave until someone expedited the case. Yeah. And then HSBC thankfully had the team and they sent me a link and I was able to upload about 40 documents worth of evidence, screenshots and things for them to review. And I was very lucky that they had a contingency that allowed us to get the money back.
So you got your money back.
Goodness.
But was anything taken forward by action fraud? Has anybody been held responsible for what they did to you?
No, currently no.
So they could still be doing exactly this to other people?
I don't doubt it, yeah.
Gosh, Anna, I'm so sorry. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah,
I can't... It's one of those things, Alice, isn't it, that your jaw drops because it sounds like Anna did everything she possibly could to be sure that this was a legit
Absolutely.
property.
Absolutely. And we sort of almost wave it away as put it in the category of scam. This is a massive, sophisticated, brazen fraud. This is a crime. And the fact that there's been nothing followed up afterwards is really awful. You say that there was £9 million lost to rental scams last year, rental fraud last year. I think that's a huge sort of underestimate. I bet it was much, much more than that. There's so much unreported crime. There were 5,000 cases, we know, at least. And sadly, Anna's age bracket is a bracket that take up probably half of the number of rental fraud cases. Not because they're young and naive. In fact, they're the opposite. Much more sophisticated and savvy than than I am, certainly in my age group. And I wouldn't probably have thought, many people wouldn't have thought to do the checks that Anna did. But because there's this desperate gap in the housing market, there is one property for every 12 tenants looking. Wow. There's anxiety, there's desperation, and where there's anxiety, where there's desperation, that's where the fraudsters go, because that's where they know the money will be handed over sort of in anticipation quickly and probably loops will be missed. We must look also at the part that social media has to play in this. Half of the rentals frauds out there emanate from Facebook marketplace.
Right,
So you have to look at where people are finding these properties. Where Anna started was a great place. Open rent, a good, secure place to start. Where there was a slip was that Anna came off the platform to start conversations with this so-called landlord directly. Never come off a platform that you are on. Stay there because it protects you. And open rent would have protected her through those next stages. And although she got her money back, it was actually because she was forceful and thorough after the event. She may well, other people in that situation may well not have got their money back and may have been sitting here telling the story £8,100 down. So these are sophisticated, brazen crimes. They're often, the pictures of the property will often be the pictures of any random property, not necessarily even in the same country as you. So if we look at the ways that you could stop this happening to you, and Anna would have ticked many of these boxes, but many of them, you know, not, I'm afraid. Reverse image search is the first thing to do. So you look at the property, this is how you do it on Google. You go into images and you click on reverse search. You look at the property that has come up and you find out where else it is. And you might find that it's in Australia and it's in where else. We've just picked a random one from Getty Images. You may also find, Anna would have found probably that it was on Airbnb. And then you would question, hang on, why is this on Airbnb? Or why is this here and there, and yet it's cheaper where I'm looking? Because the discrepancy in prices often indicates that they're offering you something to entice you.
I mean, to be fair to you, though, Anna, you went to the property.
Oh,
there was
absolutely.
no
and there were other people there, and he looked presentable.
She eyeballed the guy. He was suited and booted. I mean, it's
charming,
just
lovely, yeah.
it's unbelievable.
Unfortunately.
Something I did yesterday as a little test, it took me 3 minutes as I looked up on Land Registry, cost £7. Within 3 minutes, I had the name and address of somebody. I did my own property, the name and address of a property owner. You could verify that in different ways. If you sign up to Rent Profile, they will tell you the landlord details, the bank account details, the property ownership, the history, if there's any prosecutions attached to the property, or reports from renters.
Right.
Look at paying with a credit or debit card, if you possibly can. Stay on the platform. Ask for utility bills. Any landlord would have to have safety certificates in their name. If you'd asked to see them and check them against the bank account, then that would have exposed him. Also, verifying with the bank, is this account verified? Is this person legitimate? And that was also, that helped Anna. That one phone call to the bank helped Anna get her money back. But, you know, you cannot be too careful.
Yeah.
How are things now? Did you eventually
find a lovely
somewhere?
home?
Yes, thankfully, all settled.
All settled, and you feel wiser for it.
Absolutely, all my friends know.
Yeah.
Can I just say that Action Fraud, who Anna contacted, they are the people that you have to let them know when you're scammed. That's the City of London Police. They told us, we understand that people who report to Action Fraud may be disappointed if their case does not result in a criminal conviction, and too often it doesn't.
Yeah.
However, there are a number of key outcomes which put victims first, including helping victims reclaim stolen money and providing further practical and emotional support. I think, basically, they are overwhelmed.
Of course.
Yes.
Facebook also say they're continually investing in protections against fraud on their platforms and work closely with law enforcement. They continue to work closely with Stop Scams UK to help identify scams at the source.
I wonder, Alice, because they said to you there wasn't enough evidence to go forward, didn't they? Action Fraud.
They came back to me following a more thorough investigation, a couple of years later, but didn't actually find anything more than I knew 2 years before. So they more or less said that they didn't think that they would apprehend the suspects just from what they knew.
You had phone numbers, you had 40 bits of evidence, you had email addresses. I don't know what more evidence you can give.
I think they're overwhelmed.
Yes.
Simple as that. Well, look, thank you for sharing your story. Hopefully it's going to help somebody out there this morning. Alice, thanks for all those
Oh,
tips.
hello. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.